Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I'm so grateful to have you with us in studio today. I have a wonderful show in store for you, and we have two amazing brothers with us in the house today. These men are men of strength, men of character, men of integrity who've been through the trenches, but they have a powerful story to tell, and they've been gracious enough to take time out of their busy schedules to do so. So, without further delay, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Michael Etheridge and Mr. Shoes McKenzie. Fellas, thank you for being
Yes,
with us
sir. Yes, sir.
today.
Thank you for having me.
How you
Yeah,
doing, brothers? How are
Good
you
morning.
doing?
Doing
Everything
well.
good?
good.
Good. All right. Well, before we dive into our show for today, I want to take a moment to allow each of you an opportunity to introduce yourselves to the audience. Just tell them a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, what you're doing, things like that. So I'll start off with you, Shoes. If you would, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Shoes McKenzie, and I've gone by Shoes for almost 30 years now. I am from Mesquite, Texas, so I'm a native Dallasite. And I lived out here, grew up here, and then I moved out to San Diego in 1999 and lived out there for 19 years while pursuing my dreams. I came back here at the end of 2014 to care for my aging mother before she passed and have just decided to stay to be around family. And I thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. And if you would comment real quick, you said you were out in California to pursue your dreams. What was those specifically? What was those dreams?
I went to California to pursue acting and music.
All
Even though
right.
we have a great scene here, I decided to go where the magic happens.
Absolutely. All right. And my brother Michael Etheridge, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Michael Etheridge. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Go Lions. I don't know about those Bears, Joe, but that's something for a whole nother conversation, another podcast. But yeah, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Um, Pursued music as well as a teenager. Accomplished trombone, tuba, and baritone player. End up getting a scholarship to University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, partial scholarship for music. Graduated from there with a music liberal arts degree. But in between that, there was a lot of transformation, ups and downs, wilderness experiences, like the Bible talks about, that I experienced. On the other side of that, now I was married once, have a son and a daughter. My son goes to UW Stevens Point. My daughter just graduated last week. Her graduation party is today, and now I'm remarried. I have another son, two sons, and a 9 year old daughter, and just graduated with my master's about 3 weeks ago in leadership and organizational development. And I run a nonprofit men's homeless shelter program um, in Wisconsin. So I ended up coming back to Wisconsin. Well, I lived in Rochester, Minnesota for about 15 years, and then God put it on my heart that it was time to move back to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, to be closer to my first two children. And I've lived in Manitowoc for about 9 years now.
Awesome, my brother. You're doing great work, and that's an awesome introduction of yourself. So thank you for that. All right, fellas.
Appreciate you.
Well, as with any journey, that's why I wanted to start off with the beginnings of where you all come from and your and how that all originated. But we all know that you live long enough. There are a series of trials and tribulations, valley experiences that we go through. And the two of you, like I said, you have a very common challenge that you both went through that I've asked you to share, and you've been so gracious enough to agree to do so. I appreciate that. So, if you would, and I'll start off with you, Shoes, please tell our audience what was that moment in your life that you went through that, it hit you like a ton of bricks. You weren't sure how you were going to get through it, but through the grace of God, you were able to work your way through it. If you would, please share with us what that story was, what that challenge was all about, um, and how you were able to navigate through it.
Sure. And that would probably be the beginning of my recovery story. And I had moved back from San Diego to care for my aging mother. And why I felt that I was doing something very altruistic because I wasn't married and I didn't have kids. I had a younger brother who was here who had a family of five, who, although they talked on the phone every morning, they didn't get to see each other but about once a quarter because of where they lived and just because of how life gets in the way. And so I thought it was very altruistic to come home and take care of mom. I didn't realize the damage that was going to do to me emotionally, mentally. I won't necessarily say physically, but spiritually. Um, Coming back into the home I lived in when I was 16, and you'll always be your parents' baby. You know, you'll always see you that way. And I don't fault them for that. But, you know, when you've got a parent who is aging, and now they're kind of regressing into adolescence, into childhood, you know, as in the reverse stages of growth. And they still want to talk to you like you're 8 years old because you're still their baby. Okay. And I would remind my mother at times, I'm like, Mother, you realize I'm a 40-year-old man. She's like, I don't care. You'll always be my baby. And, you know, in theory, we will. And it gets very hard to parent an older parent. It's a very challenging because they'll never see it as they're going to listen to you in that manner. And I didn't have a primary. I was ADD, ADHD growing up, and I didn't have a primary when I moved back out here for failing to have insurance. And I got around some old buddies that I grew up with, and one buddy goes, "Hey, you know, it's not amphetamine, but it's methamphetamine." And initially, I was able to use it as a kind of in a prescription manner. You know, do a little bit in the morning, do a little bit at lunch, still have a dinner and a sensible meal, if you will, and sleep and have a functioning regular life. And then you get caught up with people, and you start having your friends become your party group, and now your party group stays up for days, and you know you're just running in that life. And when you're in the midst of it, you don't see the harm that you're doing. You don't see the people that you're affecting. And it's not that you're being selfish intentionally. You're just in a daze and you're consumed by, if you will, your next high. And it was to a point where I was still working, I was still functioning, I was my mother's caregiver. And it just happened that I was running around with some people who were making some very careless decisions. And my store was being watched by law enforcement one night, and they decided to pull us over, and we ended up going to jail. And I remember I had a very proactive judge when I went to the judge, and she said, "We're very pro recovery. If you know you think you need help, hey, let us know. We've got all the tools for you." And you know that male bravado was still there, and I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm good. I don't need help. I don't need anything like that." And she was like, okay. And I went on, you know, first timers probation. And I didn't take probation seriously as a man. I expected, you know, I kept using, I kept partying, I kept hanging around everybody else. I got on probation and I think I had 3 dirty UAs in 4 months. And there were some other things going on in my life where it was getting very life limiting, if you will. I was getting for the first time in many, many years to a suicidal point in life. And I knew something had to give. And I went to probation one day and they arrested me there at probation. The judge had put out a blue warrant on me. And I remember going in and talking to the judge and talking to my lawyer, and they told me I had, you know, 3 options. I could either go to Wilmer, which was a judicial treatment center. I could go to Safe P, which was a judicial treatment in a uh, kind of a maximum security jail setting,
Mhm.
or I could go to the penitentiary. And I do remember asking them which one of these options gets me to go home today. And they said that option's not on the table. And so you choose the lesser of two or three evils. And I said, okay, uh, if this is my choice, let's give recovery a try. And after making that decision, I remember going back to my cell in Dallas County at Lou Sterrett. And that's where I had my, if you will, my come to Jesus moment. There alone in the cell between me and God, I said, God, if this is what you want from me, then I totally surrender. I ask you to take this craving. I ask you to take this addiction and whatever you need me to go through. However much work you need me to put in, it's in your hands. And I'm just going to be the vessel to do it. And from that moment on, and I only have my best friend who can tell me the same story. And it's weird if you're not from a spiritual or religious background to understand this. I truly believe that God delivered me from addiction. I mean, I won't say that in the last 5 years that I haven't had a want every now and then maybe to go have a beer, but it's kind of like wanting Chinese food, or it'll if if you just keep thinking about something else, it'll pass. It's nothing that's like I'm gonna have to go to the liquor store and get me a bottle. I'm gonna have to go out and pipe up or do something of that nature. It's never been that. Mine is just kind of like and it's only with alcohol every now and then. Like I was sitting at the poker table with some buddies the other night, and they started talking about bourbons, and I was like, "Y'all going to have to change the subject because that was one of my favorites." And they were like, "We're cool with that," because they start getting into the taste and the ambers and the this and the that and the notes, and I'm like, "Yep, y'all going to change the topic." But other than that, when it came to drugs itself, I have not had a craving. I have not had a desire. I have not. I've been around people who are still in active use. I've been around people who are careless and thoughtless who will pipe up or get high in front of me. I've never had the want to do it. That's why I say I feel like God delivered me from my addiction. And
Absolutely.
I put in a whole lot of work. I did the 183 days at Wilmer. And in that process, my mother passed away 15 days after me going into recovery. And that was, I was in the best environment God could have put me in for that because I knew losing mom was going to be my hardest struggle. So he put me in the right place for when he was going to take her. I had the support of 35 other open men on my unit who were I was able to process the death. I was able to cry in public. I was able to discuss it. Other people were able to share their experiences of lost loved ones, lost parents, lost siblings with me. It was a very cathartic experience. And I didn't have to stuff it down for the first time. I was actually able to process and actually deal with life on life's terms and not hide behind a mask of drugs or alcohol, which I had been doing since probably age 16, 15 or 16. And so it was very cathartic for me. And that's kind of where we're at, as far as the recovery story. And I did a lot of work. I went in there and excelled. I came out and to being homeless, to being at the bridge in Dallas. And I always joke when I tell my story and my testimony, and I said, I thought I had found, I found that, hell had a basement. When I got out, I'd already thought I'd hit rock bottom. And then I felt like there was a basement in there that you had to find as well. And then I went to Souls Harbor, and originally I knew that Souls Harbor was just kind of a recovery. I knew a little bit about them from their thrift stores, and I was so happy to be out of the bridge that I didn't even realize I was going into another 6 month recovery program. But it wasn't as stringent as Wilmer had been, but it was the best thing for me. Going through the whole recovery process and the blessings that I had through all that, that allowed me to grow as a man. Because when you start using substances, it kind of stunts your growth, kind of where you stopped. I mean, we do mature, but we quit maturing emotionally and things like that because we started placating what we were doing. And so it allowed me to start growing as a man again and finding who I was and who I wanted to be. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
I want to thank you first off for just sharing that, for your transparency and your openness. I know that that's not always an easy thing to do when you go through something like that, but I thank you for doing so, especially on this platform, because you're blessing someone whether you realize it or not. You're blessing someone in the telling of that story. So I definitely appreciate that. Michael, I want to turn to you and ask you, what was that traumatic moment for your life that you again felt like a ton of bricks had hit you and you weren't sure how you were going to get up out of this thing, but you were able to persevere and push through it and find yourself still standing here today to even tell the story. If you would, please share that with us.
Yeah, first and foremost, shoes. Thank you so much for sharing. There is a lot that hit me. Oh, while you were talking, and sharing. So, I think. For me, it starts in childhood. It starts with some experience through childhood that you experience. Um, then you go through that life kind of pushing those emotions down. Um, you excel. I excelled in sports. I excelled, with my instrument. Got to college. Where I met you, Joe. I'm in the college life now, land of academia, a place where I didn't think, growing up in the hood, it's not a place that you don't think you ever make it to. But now I'm here, and with that, my performance in college was all a mask because there was some deep rooted pain there. And I realized when I went to my first house party, you know about this, Joe. It's like, okay, let me try this. Let me take a little drink of that. And then the feeling was euphoric. I was able to, be the life of the party, and I felt alive again. But I think my journey was just, using um those substances as a way to cover pain and have this mask on. And eventually, either I was humbled or humiliated, and I was both. Because it got out of control. It went from, you know, um, smoking some weed, then it went to, drinking, and then all of a sudden, tried crack cocaine for the first time back in '94, and then it spilled over into when I got married in 2002, had my son in 2003. Crack cocaine gotten away. My son was 6 months old. She took the baby. We tried to get back together. That's when my daughter was my daughter was born. Still couldn't put it down. Um, End up um, committing fraud, a felony. End up going to jail. And then after that was on house arrest for a while. And this all happened in Minnesota. And then I felt that I still wasn't done yet. Got arrested again, and just like shoes, I was given the chance to go to treatment. And I remember like it was yesterday because I was living in someone's basement. Um, I had been sleeping in my car for a while. I was homeless, sleeping in my car, and then someone offered to put me in their basement. There was mice running around, and I was on this couch that smelled, and and I had my garbage bag full of stuff, and I was wandering around in that basement, and then a picture of my children was on top of my garbage bag, and I looked at it and I just started to cry. I cried for about an hour straight, and but guess what I did? I decided to go ahead and get an 8 ball instead. And I'm in the kitchen with the brothers. We all getting high, but then all of a sudden, I felt this overwhelming force telling me it was time to go. It was time to leave the kitchen. It was time to leave that place. It was time to really follow something. And I know I'm speaking of a God that at the time, Joe, I didn't believe in,
Mhm.
but I knew it was time to go. I kept hitting the pipe. I couldn't get high anymore. I knew for a fact if I wouldn't have left at some point, it would have been certain death. So I left. Guys was like, "Man, what you doing? You leaving all?" I said, "Y'all can have that. I gotta go." And I left, and end up been able to get in with a social worker that day, still high, to get a Rule 25 to get into a 30-day treatment program. She said it was full. I said, "Okay, if I leave here, I'm dead. I know I am." The next day, she said, "Okay, there's a bed for you." And I grabbed my couple of my garbage bags, and a friend of mine gave me a ride to treatment. And went to treatment, went to a halfway house after that. Um, 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 Committed to the Lord in 2008. Got clean in 2006. Went back and got my undergrad degree because I dropped out and got that in 2007. Um, Committed to the Lord in 2008, and then put my life back together. Moved back here in 2014 to take over a men's homeless shelter program. I had no idea about a nonprofit, budgets, P&Ls, statements of activity, none of that. And 9 years later, here I am running a successful program and overseeing a $450,000 budget.
Wow.
Amen.
God is good. Mm, mm. I'm just blown away. I'm blown away. But at the same time, because I, along with you two brothers, know the power of God, there's that part of me that's not really surprised because there's nothing too big for God to do, and it's evident in your life, Michael, in your life, shoes. And again, Michael, I thank you for your transparency.
Yeah.
I only knew a sliver of your
Right.
story, and and I just think back to you referenced, the mask wearing. We've heard of that term, wearing a
Mhm.
mask, and
Oh, yeah.
and and
Yep.
and, sh- and shoes, just so that you understand. I mean, as Michael stated, we went to college together. We've partied together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I never, I never even saw you, Mike, get to a point to where I thought you were quote unquote out of control in any kind of way. So that's just how you just
Right.
know that people do so well at wearing a mask. I had no idea. And that just also is a testament as to why you got to be careful about how you treat people, because you never know what people are going through.
Right.
One of the things my mom always told me is, never be jealous or envious of other people, because you don't know what price they pay to have what they have. You don't know what they're going through.
Right.
Always show kindness and love towards other people. And God, of course, professes that very same thing, to love, those those you don't know, your enemies, anybody. You just don't know. And so the both of you sharing these stories, these testimonies, I mean, this is just mind blowing. And I'm just honored to just even hear your stories, because you serve as further inspiration for me. When I think I'm going through some stuff, and when I'm up against the wall, and you hear stories like this, it gives you a reminder that you need to be thankful for so much, and just grateful that God has just played such a major role in your lives. So with that said, and it's probably the answer's kind of already out there. I wanted to find out from each of you, as you move forward in life, not only in your recovery, but just in dealing with adversities in general, what has been your primary go-to regimen, as far as, when I'm going through, this is what I tend to do to help me stay sane, to help me keep that peace of mind, to keep that balance. For you, shoes, what is sort of your thing that you have been relying upon? What's your process that you rely upon when you find yourself in dark moments and trying times?
To lean on God. It's one of those of, I'll share even something even more. I spent a lot of my life being very suicidal from probably age 11 up until probably into my 40s, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression. I'm actually diagnosed as bipolar 2. Uh, and when I was younger, they used to call it manic depressive. Now they call it bipolar and clinical major depression, from what I went through. But in my recovery, I don't know, there was a mindset change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have mentioned this to you when we were at the stat court thing. And I said, because I haven't showed any of those symptoms since I went through my recovery. And it was once I processed all the baggage from my youth, from my childhood, when I quit being the victim, when I quit blaming my parents, blaming society, blaming the man, having all these expectations that I was owed something. Once that mindset changed, I got healthy, and not just mentally. I got physically healthy. It's very hard for me to explain how the physiological side of this went in my life, but it was to a point to where I realized, and like I said, I've had multiple suicide attempts in my life. And you want to talk about where you see
Mm.
yourself as a failure. when you wake up, when you make peace with God and you have taken that step to whatever it is to terminate your existence, and whether you wake up with a friend or you wake up in a hospital and you realize, dang, I couldn't even be successful at that, that's a humbling moment in itself. But then when you have that moment with God, and God and I now have this agreement, I'm not going on my terms. He's got a bigger purpose and a bigger, plan for me. And maybe I can't always see that, but it's getting up every day, putting one foot in front of the other, doing the next right thing, and trusting. And that's where faith comes in, where we walk, by faith instead of by sight. And He has immensely blessed me into where I am today, because most of the guys that I grew up with are either still behind bars or 6 feet deep. So
Mm,
I'm blessed to be where I am, and I don't take that for granted. I tell people I may not be a Tony Robbins and I may not be a Zig Ziglar in my life, but I can change the world one person at a time by how I deal with every man and every woman, and the experience I leave with each person, and how I want to be remembered by them. Because, like, it's the old adage: people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did. They will always remember how you made them feel. And that
mm.
is one of my goals in life, is always to leave people with a feeling that they were glad they were in my presence.
Awesome, awesome. That's powerful right there. And like you said, yeah, you may not be a Tony Robbins or a Zig Ziglar, but you know what? You are Shoes McKenzie, and there's nobody like you, brother. We don't take that lightly. And even when you referenced about that humbling moment of failing at committing suicide, you know what? That was a win because God never
Right.
meant for you to take your life because He still had work for you to do. He had places and spaces for you to be in to share your story and to be of encouragement and empowerment to other people. So yeah, it might have felt like a failed attempt, but it was a victory actually, and it was God's victory in
It
keeping you
was.
alive to because you still had work to do. So that's awesome. What about you, Mike? What has been your process in as you think about the adversities of life, whether it's what you've gone through or just even other stuff that happens, just life. What do you lean into and rely upon to help you get through those trying and dark times in life?
Yeah, the same. Rely on the Lord. Always constantly forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us can, we forgive others, but you have to forgive yourself because during this process, I've hurt people,
Mhm.
and the enemy can kind of bring that back up, and it's not because now I'm redeemed, and I'm following God, and I'm doing all these wonderful things, but our past that never goes away. I don't think a lot of people understand that, like in this recovery journey, and coming up on August 11th, I'll have 17 years, and it's
Congratulations.
still, and thank you, and it's still something that I constantly have to forgive myself, or when I don't do that, it could be a pretty jury road. So that's one of the things I do. Exercise, being involved in my church, and volunteering. Someone always said, if you feeling sorry for yourself, help someone else.
Mhm.
So I always make sure that I know I'm in this physical body just to help others. That's it. All the men that I got to minister to, all the 475 men over the 9 years, and in what I've done, God has put me in a wonderful platform, from receiving services now to provide those services to those men that are destitute, and looking for a firm foundation to exceed into the next chapter of their lives. So if I'm not forgiving myself, and working on those things constantly, then I'm no good in the mission field God has blessed me with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that again, another powerful message. And I think one of the key things that I took away from what you just said was the importance of forgiving yourself. Um, because truth be told, forgiveness it's through the forgiveness that you unlock the healing. When you fail to forgive, whether it's because of somebody else who's wronged you, or if you felt like you've wronged yourself, it's like the equivalent
Hmm.
of holding a poison inside of you and somehow thinking that you're harming somebody else, or that you're making somebody else feel bad by not forgiving, and when in fact you're just doing it to you. But when you release that, when you
Yeah.
forgive yourself, it just opens up God's opportunity to just pour into you and heal you emotionally, mentally, physically, and of course spiritually, and just makes you stronger. So I'm glad that you embraced the value and importance of that, and have allowed that to be your mantra of life. Because, like I said, yeah, you've gone through. We've all gone through. My storm may not be your storm. Your storm may not be my storm. But it doesn't have to define who you are. That doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It doesn't mean that you don't have an opportunity to be used by God in a powerful and meaningful way and to make impact on the world. So I'm glad that you shared that. Um, Fellas, what I'd like to ask you now is, if you had an opportunity to talk shoes, to talk to the younger version of shoes, Mike, to talk to the younger version of Mike, or men who are like you, been in similar situations like you, what would be your words of encouragement and empowerment to them, to let them know that while you might be going through what you go through, this is what you need to keep in mind to be able to not only persevere but to come out of that, and be a better version of who you are? What would you say to them? And I'll start with you, shoes.
It's a complicated question and a complicated answer because I love the man I am today. And I would not be the man I am today had I not gone through everything that I have gone through. So, it would be very hard for me to go back. Yes, I would say stay in school. Yes, I would say don't ever drink. Don't ever, try substances. Don't hang around that crowd. But all that gave me the experience and gave me the character that I am today. So it's very hard to say don't do that. And Michael, I respect that you're a parent, and this I am not. And everybody says everything changes. So I always have somebody say, okay, well, if you can't answer this, then how would you put yourself in as a parent? What would you say to your son? I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, that's a little different. That's a little different. Like our parents, that's where you get locked in the closet till you're 40 years old and you don't have no social skills and anything like that, because I'm going to protect you from the world. But then, that doesn't work either. Um, but for I would say, because as a youth, you want to experience things. You want to be with the in crowd. You want to have these experiences with other people. Because I work with a general manager of a large transportation company, and the general manager of this company is 24 years old. And we talk all the time, and I see him intellectually and mentally as my equal, and I'm a 49-year-old man. And I sit there and have these conversations with him, and he hears, sometimes we'll talk locker room talk, or how our youth was, and he knows my past and this, that, and the other. We were talking about this the other day, and he says, "Man, I feel like I had a very boring life." And I said, "No, but look where you are at 24, and the years that I wasted. I didn't wake up until 42. You woke up at like 17." And so, and he doesn't drink, he doesn't use substances, and this, that, and the other. He never has. So he has no opinion about it, because he said, I can't have an opinion if I've never done it. And again, there's his wiseness speaking right then. And, if we get into saying somebody's an old soul, I tell him he's an old soul all the time. Like, you've been here before. You've got some experience with life. But for me, I would say, like I said, I would have finished high school. I wouldn't have been so cocky. I wouldn't have, that typical male bravado that a lot of us have. We got this, and always thinking that we're right. And there's some, life is the best teacher. Life is going to humble you. Life is going to open your eyes. We still have the arrogance of our youth when we're in our 20s, of thinking that we know best, that our parents don't know anything, that society doesn't know anything, and that we got a good grip on this. I remember when I was 18 years old, I thought I knew the rules in the game of life, that there was no specific rules, and that, it was kind of just dog eat dog and go out there and carve something for yourself. And I was secure in who I was. I thought I was secure in who I knew who I was, and knew how the world worked, and I could grab the world by the balls, if you will. Excuse my terminology there, but and looking at it from a 49-year-old man, knowing I know a little bit about a lot, and I know a lot about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also there's the arrogance is gone when you realize that nobody is better than anybody. White is not better than black, male is not better than female, straight is not better than gay. One culture is not better than the other, and you realize that everybody's going through something. Everybody is trying to make it out here. And I tell people, whether they're looking at Bill Gates or Tom Cruise or however you want to put up the elite class, I was like, they're all going through something. They're all fighting a demon. They're all fighting a battle every day. They're just living life in more publicly than you and I are.
Mm-hmm.
And they've traded their privacy for their fame. And
Yeah.
so that's something I chose not to do. But like I said, I would be that typical parent now. I sound like my father now. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. Don't drink alcohol. Get a good education. Stay in church. Make better decisions. I wish I had learned something. I've had the opportunity to support some of the best minds in the world by supporting CEOs and business owners for years. And I remember a CEO of mine telling me something when I was young, and he took a risk on me. And he said, hang around people you want to be like, not people who are like you, because people who are like you are never going to go anywhere.
Facts.
And I was like, that's a powerful statement. He said, I hang around other business owners. I hang around other Fortune 500 people, people who are doing something, who are movers and shakers, who are teaching me on a daily basis to be a better man, to grow my business, to grow my network. And I thought that was so powerful.
Awesome, awesome. That's a powerful word. And I know you started off in answering this question saying it was, kind of difficult and complicated to say something on this, but I think you said it well in the sense that don't be that person who wishes that you don't go through stuff. We know
Right.
it's not always comfortable to go through certain things, those trials, those tribulations, but it is through those experiences that help to shape us, to mold us, to sharpen us, to be becoming what we were ultimately destined to be. So we have to go through this. It's like it's our training process. It's our workout in life to get to where we need to get to. So
Yes,
that
sir.
that's huge. And Michael, for you, what would if you had a chance to talk to little Mike, you had a chance to talk to some men or women out there that are perhaps gone through or going through some of what you've gone through, what would be your words of encouragement and words of wisdom to them to say this is what I would have for you to lean into on to lean in on to help you persevere and ultimately overcome those life challenges. What would you have to say on that?
Allow yourself to feel everything.
Mm,
Like it's and especially for men, it's tough, right? To be vulnerable, to express those feelings, of self-loathing and self-hate, and that's what I would say because, like you said, in this training field, and where God wants you to be to feel everything, it's like a workout, right? You pumping spiritual muscle,
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and to get ready for what's going to come, because wait 2 weeks from now, you never know, right? So
Absolutely.
um that's where we're able to feel everything, and be able to especially ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
The strength of a person's character is their ability to ask for help, and once you receive that help, what do you do with that? And are you asking the right people for help? That's going to guide you, and that's going to give you that strength and encouragement. But our greatest source of strength and courage comes from God. But He'll bless you with those people. And are you able to see those people and ask those people for help? Because we can block our blessing by asking people for help, because they'll tell us what we want to hear. The blessing is asking those who love us very much what we don't want to hear, right? So that will be the thing. Don't seek the path of least resistance. Go through the middle passage, and when you come out on the other end, you'll be stronger for it.
Mm. Very powerful, very powerful. And you're absolutely right, Michael. That asking for help, especially for men, that is a challenging thing because we want to take it on all on ourselves. We, we're too tough to show weaknesses and vulnerabilities. I wish you were in town today, Michael. Shoes and I are going to actually have an opportunity later today to participate in an event. It's called Candid Conversations for Men, and it's specifically a platform that's set to pour into men, to affirm them, to give them a space where they feel loved and appreciated, and have the opportunity to be vulnerable. So definitely, if that opportunity comes
Oh,
in the future, because it's going to actually be going on the road in several cities, and if it has an opportunity to get anywhere close to you, or if you can get close to it, we will definitely make sure you are aware of that, because you're speaking to the very thing that is a challenge that many men have. But just in general, your message of just asking for help, and
Yeah.
knowing that, ultimately, as men of God, you all know that that's the first source of help that we're supposed to go to, because if we know that God is in our corner, if we're in relationship with him, we already know that we're not supposed to be picking up burdens and weights that he said, hey, I got this. This is what I'm here for,
hmm,
to lift this for you. All I need you to do is lock arms with me, and let's go through the storm together, so I can make sure that you're shielded and protected, so that when you get onto the other side of that storm, you come out still standing, you come out better, wiser, stronger as a result of that. So very, very powerful that you said that, and very, very relevant. All right. Well, for our final segment here, what I'd like to ask you, brothers, is this is our opportunity. It's not really a ask as much as it's a celebration opportunity. And you've shared a couple of wins here, but I'd like to hear from each of you, what things are going on in your lives right now that, whether it's some good news, some celebration, some things that you're working on that you're a part of, that you can share with the audience. We'd love to hear, and again, to celebrate that. So I'll start with you, Shoes. I know you've of course, we talked about throughout the show about the battle of recovery and everything. How many years has it been for you since your recovery?
I'm still a young child compared to Michael here. I've got just over 5 years. And I say that I don't say that I'm still a toddler, but when I'm around, I'm celebrated around people who've got 25, 30 years sometimes. So for me, I'm still an adolescent. I'm still a child when I can in my recovery. And I remind people that, but whether it's one day, 5 years, 17 years, 20 years, I tell people my recovery is no stronger or better than yours, you having one day or 24 hours behind you. I said, it's one day at a time, and as cliche as that it sounds, that's what it is. I tell people I didn't use yesterday, I haven't used today. The plan is not to use tomorrow, but you never know what life is going to throw at you. And just because you stumble and hiccup, I always tell people when I go speak these days, I tell people there's an adage in the community that says relapse is part of recovery. And when I speak in the recovery world, and I say I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But
mm-mm,
I tell people, I say, because I don't think that life is black and white. We live in the beauty of gray. But I said, for me, there is something that is black and white, and I believe that you can only make a mistake once. After that, it's a choice.
Mm,
And so when you get into recovery, I say, if you've done any kind of work inside yourself, okay, if you've gotten past step two and you've done any kind of internal work on yourself in recovery, I don't understand why, once you know what those choices, that detrimental choices make, why do you choose to make that choice again?
mm,
When you know that it's not going to be a solution, it's not going to accomplish anything, it's a temporary fix that you're still going to have to deal with everything when you sober up. So why make that choice to begin with? And I say, but I'm looking at it from someone who hasn't relapsed, and I pray that I never do. But I always have to preface this with the gentleman I usually speak with and say, but don't take that as so rigid. If this is your eighth time in recovery, I'm happy you're here. You're still trying. You're still putting one foot in front of you. You're not letting, if you will, the disease of addiction win. You're still trying to battle it. So if this is your eighth time, if this is your 12th time, if this is your 20th time, I still support you and still champion you being here because you're saying, I'm not giving up. You're still trying. And to
absolutely.
me, that's a powerful message right there in itself. And for me and what I do for a living, God has truly blessed me. I am meant to be in service to others. And I can tell just from talking to Michael that he lives a life of service as well. That God didn't put us here, He didn't put us even through all these trials and adversities and make us survivors to keep that to ourselves. So it is our duty to be of service to others and to share what we've got. And for me, I am the customer experience manager for Dallas's mass transit system, specifically in paratransit services. And I love what I do. I love the community that I serve. I love being able to give back one person at a time to improve systems by improving people every day. So God has truly blessed me to allow me to be in a life of service and to be around, candid conversations with Dr. Guillory, to have been able to meet you. I would love to be more into the motivational space. And I believe God is opening those doors right now. And just the people He's allowing me to meet to share my message, to learn from other men who have gone through this. This is a perfect pairing. Just in listening to Michael talk, we've got a lot of similarities here
Mhm.
besides just our journey of recovery. So this is kind of a perfect pairing. And I appreciate you having us on today.
Absolutely. God
Yes.
put it on my heart to put you two together, like you said, for a variety of reasons. I just thought it would be a good mix, and I'm glad I did it.
No, this is
Real quick,
amazing.
real quick, shoes. Of course, you spoke of earlier about your passion, of course, with music and acting. Have you had a chance? Do you have anything upcoming with that, or have you gotten back into that yet?
I haven't because I'm paid for a 40-hour week that I usually give about 65 hours a week for because that's so much of my passion.
Gotcha.
And it's not about a dollar figure. I mean, yes, everything has to be sustainable. We have to have a living wage, but I love what I do. So I have poured myself into that. I do still submit for open calls and things like that. I would love to grab an agent and, be able to do music or be able to do acting full time, but that might not be where God wants me to be. That's
Gotcha.
a passion for me. And whether I do it behind the scenes and things of that nature, it doesn't mean I have to be the one on stage to be the one entertaining. I love to be in the studio. I love to be running a soundboard. I don't mind doing roadie work. It's anything to be part of the creative process. I love to be in the creative space and the blessings that you get to be around, even the craziness that you get to be around in the creative space. It's all very fueling.
Awesome. Awesome. And you, Michael, of course, you mentioned earlier, and I remember you posted about this. You just recently got your master's degree. I'm so proud of you with that, my
Yeah.
brother. Wish I could have been there for that. What else you got going on, celebration wise, or things that you're working on? Any projects, anything like that that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I have been blessed to be approached by the dean of the technical college. Um, they are they're opening up a program where they are going to have curriculum for leadership and organizational development. And I was asked to teach a organizational behavioral course. So this is going to launch probably next year, but they're going to put that program in place. So um, I went and took a tour, and I look forward to doing that. I do eventually want to teach um, and be a part of a college campus at some point. Um, right now, what else? So I haven't played my instrument in a while. As you all know, I spoke about, I'm a musician as well. So I am going to pick up my horn again and audition for the Lakeshore Wind Ensemble right here in town. And God blessed me with a gift. So I'm going to sharpen my axe and get back to work in doing that.
That is awesome, my
So
brother.
um,
Awesome.
yeah. So as far as work, we're looking at we found a couple of buildings we're going to renovate to expand into permanent supportive housing for our guys because as you all know, the rent and housing market is really that rent everything is so high. So we are blessed to be working with some powerful players that are willing to collaborate with us so we can have men go into that next phase before they get into permanent housing. So just a few things that we're working on.
Gotcha. Got. And how many men are you servicing through your facility?
Yeah, our capacity is 20, and we serve about 80 to 85 men a year.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And one thing, real quick, back to your music. I'm glad to hear that you're bringing up the idea of you getting back into that. But I recently saw something that you posted, and I wanted to ask you. I was just curious about. You had an opportunity to go back to our college, and I believe you attended
Oh yeah.
an anniversary event with the musicians there, and you posted a comment where you were acknowledging someone that you ran into while you were there, and you said, "Thank you for saving my life with music." Could you elaborate on what you meant by that? I thought that was a powerful statement, but I was just curious as to what was your message behind that.
Yes. So Dr. Jerry Young. So I had auditioned. There's this world renowned band camp program called Interlochen.
Mm-hmm.
So I had out of 30 other baritone players, there were three scholarships given. And I auditioned, and I was one of those individuals that received a scholarship to go to this camp for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Jerry Young was there, and I was just really good at my instrument. I was just really playing for fun. I really was just going to work with my dad at Chrysler. He was making a bunch of money, and I was going to do the same thing. But then he said that near the end of camp, he was like, "You're a phenomenal player. What are you going to do with your music?" I was like, "Well, I really nothing. I was just going to work." And he was like, "Well, from what you told me about where you're from, is that something that's going to be fulfilling for you? And I'll have you think about that. And but I really want you to come to the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire."
Mm.
So then later that week, one of my friends gets killed in a crack house, and then and seeing him in a casket, and I'm like, man, um, I think I better rethink something. I didn't know where it was coming from, but it was time to like think about my career. And my dad was like, my pops was like, look, no, I thought about it. You should, go to college and pursue music or whatever. So then I told Dr. Young, I'm in. He sent me a bus ticket or one-way ticket for $75. Him and the late Jim Vance met
Mm.
me at the bus stop at 11 o'clock at night, and there it is.
Wow. Wow.
He saved my life.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. And like I said, that's you and I both had our experiences with Mr. Vance, and what a powerful man he was for many of us to getting us in college and helping us to just get through college. So awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful story. I never knew that when you posted that. I said I got to ask him about that when he comes on the show. So I'm glad you shared that. Well, well, well. This has been an awesome time. I have enjoyed being with you, brothers. I know we had a couple of little technical difficulties to start, but this is the devil being busy. We weren't gonna let nothing stop this show from happening, and we did our thing today. I'm so thankful to you, Shoes McKenzie, for being with us. Michael Etheridge for you being with us. It has been a
Yes,
joy. It's
sir.
been a pleasure. I'll get a chance, of course, to see you later this afternoon, Shoes, at our
Yes, sir.
event. So that'll be great. And Michael, I'm looking forward. My brother, we've known each other way too long. It's been about 10 plus years since the last time I saw you. We were together. But
Right.
we
Yeah.
gotta
Yep.
do a little bit better than that. We're gonna stay in touch and make sure we all stay in contact with each other, because I think as a brotherhood, it's so important, if nothing more, for us to all check in with one another from time to time, just to say, hey, what's good, what's going on, and just let each other know that we're still encouraging and supporting and praying for one another. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much, brothers, for
Thank
being on
you.
the podcast. That brings us to the closing of our Blessings in the Street podcast. And to my audience, please understand that this is the place where your story is your glory, your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. So until next time, please tune in. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, I encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be blessed, everybody.